How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Unlucky Charms from 2013. This is a modern full moon movie. For those of you guys keeping up with the numbers, this is full moon number 264. So yeah, it's later in their catalog. We tend to forget that not all movies from full moon are 90s movies. So it does seem kind of weird when you see CGI creep into a movie or modern pop culture references. But yeah, 2013 for this one, so not an incredibly old movie. This is produced and directed by the studio big guy up there, the pretty much head of the company, Charles Band. He also has a credit for creating the story. This stars Tiffany Thornton as as your main human lead, and Nathan Phillips as the Leprechaun, I believe. And yeah, Leprechaun, which, Unlucky Charms, that's why I'm covering it around St. Patrick's Day. Now, even though this movie has a leprechaun in it, it's not the most leprechaun-y St. Patrick's Day movie out there. This deals with him more as a piece of folklore and magic. You don't get the end of the rainbow or the pot of gold or, a bunch of fun St. Patrick's Day stuff, but it is a leprechaun. We'll get into that more in a minute. And I guess with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the plot. No major spoilers, but I want to say my piece on some plot points as well as make sure you guys have a basic idea as to what this movie is about. So let's go ahead and jump right into the plot and cover a few things here. This movie opens in the underworld, where we see a group of fantasy folklore creatures. You get the puka, bloody bones, and the banshee. Now, I know enough about folklore to know that these are all pre-existing creatures. I think Bloody Bones, they actually did a little special about him in the Creeps magazine number 28, I want to say. And of course everybody knows the Banshee, but yeah, I'm not super familiar with them, but I do know they were pre-existing folklore creatures. The leader of this group is led by, let me get this right, Far Darig, who is known as the Red Man. Now, I don't think in this movie they ever call him a leprechaun. He's clearly a leprechaun. He's shorter in stature. He has an Irish accent and red hair with a beard. But I don't think they ever specifically name him as a leprechaun. In fact, he's wearing a red suit as opposed to a green one. The back of the box, instead of calling him the Red Man, lists him as a red leprechaun. So they do call him a leprechaun specifically on the back of the box, and you can kind of infer that from the title. I believe this movie, when they were making it, they were using the working title Miscreations, but then they realized quite correctly that they should probably push the leprechaun angle, so they gave it the Unlucky Charms title, and you go from there. But anyway, these fantasy folklore creatures are in the netherworld. You see, way back in time, they used to get called in to solve man's problems on a regular basis, but they got tired of their magic being used, so they created these 4 unlucky charms, one for each of them, and if you were to find all 4 charms, you could start to use their magic. Now, they sense that someone has done this, that after a long period of being away from Earth, someone has finally managed to go to all the corners of the globe, collect their 4 charms, and they're now being summoned to Earth. It's kind of a weird thing where they don't know specifically who does this, but the person who is using the charms is drawing power from them, and if they want to, can actually give the creatures orders, but they don't know who it is. So they have to go down to Earth to do their jobs, but also, since they don't really want to, they have to try to figure out who has their charms. So for them, it's a little bit of a mystery. For us, it's revealed relatively quickly, and if you're paying attention, you can probably guess which one of them has the charms. But anyway, when they go into Earth, it's revealed the place where the charms are. It's a giant castle where they're shooting a reality TV show. A bunch of women, it's down to 5, are competing in a contest to find out who will be the new spokeswoman for a lingerie line. So, yeah, this is one of those movies where they will get a lot of mileage from the fact that there's girls in lingerie for a large period of this movie. Personally, I came for the killer Leprechaun. But that being said, this does dive into the reality TV tropes, and personally, I'm not the biggest fan of this, semi-trashy reality TV. For the most part, all the girls there want to fight and backstab with each other. I grew up around when Survivor was popular, and personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of that. And yeah, I'm not the biggest reality TV fan, so I wasn't super excited about this angle. And of course, you get these kind of over-the-top characters that want to fight with each other, and even the judges and producers and stuff are kind of over the top as well. And not the biggest fan of the reality TV circuit, but that's where we're going with. But anyway, you get your main girl there, who is actually a super good person, despite the fact that everyone else likes to fight. She is a college marketing major, I believe, and because she's a marketing major, she's more interested in the idea of being a brand spokesperson rather than her career as a model. She thinks that would be interesting from a marketing standpoint to represent a product line, which is kind of interesting, but she's so far removed from everyone else, and you wonder, the contest is clearly geared to finding this one type of girl. How did someone so different than all the rest make it into the top 5? It's kind of weird that the show was like, no, she can stay, even though she's clearly not what the show's looking for. But she's your final girl there, and as the contestants, as it plays out, they have to, do little games and try to win prizes and try to get immunity and try to, be picked in this contest. They all really want to win and do whatever it takes, and we don't actually see anyone get eliminated. Instead, people are picked off by the Leprechaun and his gang. Now, right off the bat, the Leprechaun's killing people because someone's using magic to murder people through him. I would say that it's not the best idea to do this during a TV taping. There's more eyes on you during a TV taping than normally, and if you're trying to commit murder even through auxiliary means, I don't think this would be the best time. They do address it in one scene though. The first girl goes missing, and you see her interact with the Leprechaun, but the Leprechaun's not on screen, and then she disappears from camera. It actually reminded me a little bit of that famous Eliza Lamb video, and it is kind of interesting to see that. And then there's also this weird thing where even though they're shooting a TV show, it's reality TV, you don't ever really see any big camera crews, and usually when you're shooting something for TV, there's cameras everywhere, and it's not like it's a found footage thing where we're stuck in the cameras. We're not, yet at the same time, there's no big camera crew. They're hidden cameras everywhere, surveillance camera type stuff. So they are recording them, but you think that, unless it's like the idea of where observing people in these regular lives, you think you'd want more angles than just the top-down view. Like, that would get really redundant on TV after a while, but no big camera crews, less people to worry about when Leprechaun shenanigans come up. So I guess I get it. I just don't know if it'd make the best show. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the big thing with this movie, what everybody likes. The Leprechaun himself, Fardarig. He is really interesting, and I find with a lot of full moon movies, you do get this where the monster or the creature is way more interesting than whatever the rest of the movie is, and this is definitely a case of that. He has this thing where he's lamenting how he believes the world and people in the world used to be better, and he wishes the world was a better place, and he doesn't really want to do these evil acts, and he doesn't like that someone's using the magic for selfish needs, so he's one of those that if anyone else had found the charms, he would have been happier, because he doesn't want to be a bad guy, he doesn't want to be a killer leprechaun, and it's actually really cool to see this solemn, introspective leprechaun. It's very different than a lot of the other ones, and a lot of people expect the Leprechaun movie Leprechaun, where he just, runs around and tells jokes and is really funny, and it's different to see this introspective one, and it's played really well by this actor, and I really did like this character, plus the fact, like I said earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of the reality TV crowd, and neither is Fardarig. He looks at this, he's like, oh, what has the world come to? And that's really fun, and he also has his friends do seem like a tight-knit group, so that's really cool to have a monster with a family that's not really a monster and is really thoughtful, and I really did like this character, and if they put him in another movie, I'd probably pick that up as well. It's a really cool, different leprechaun, and I mean, hey, he's red too. He's the red leprechaun, so he's really, really different. But as far as the kills, this is probably one of the biggest things outside of the general atmosphere of the reality TV. The kills weren't really that great in this movie. And actually, I thought about it because I was thinking about how to structure this review, and I'm like, okay, talk about the kills, and then I looked back in my head to try to think, okay, how many were there? And there's only 3 human kills in this one, and that's not terribly much, especially at the end of this movie. You're left with quite a few characters alive. I remember other full moon movies like Hideous, where they're like, oh, movie's almost over, time to kill all these people. This one, it's a-okay with just killing 3. The first kill is a really cool special effects kill, and I did really like that. But sadly, the second one is basically a show up, I'm magic, you're dead type kill. And I mention this because I just covered the Leprechaun's game, because I'm doing Leprechaun movies. But just like in the Leprechaun's game, when you do magic kills, they tend to not have the struggle element, and in turn, no tension, so you just show up and you're dead. There's not much of a story behind that kill. There's no back and forth, and if you can do a special effects piece, at least that's something interesting to look at, but it's really hard to do Wishmaster style magical kills that you can't really fight with, and the first one's okay because there's some special effects behind it and it's interesting. The second one just really isn't that great. It's more show up and you're dead, which is kind of sad because, like I said, there's only 3 human kills in this movie, and you do a full moon creature feature thing, I expect a ton more kill scenes, where at the end of the day you have all these characters left over. You could have done some cool frightening and intense sequences, but instead we get more of trying to find a golden egg for a challenge or something, and I'm like, it really could tip more on the horror side than the reality TV side. What's there is some cool creatures, not necessarily the best kills because of the magic, but the creatures are cool enough, and I would have loved to see them wreak more havoc, and they sadly don't, and it's a lot more on the reality TV. So yeah, they're cool creatures, man. I really wish they had done something. But that being said, even though there's not a lot of kills and there's not a lot of cool scenes like that, it does build up to something by the end, and the cool final fight scene, although it does kind of wrap up a little quickly. But that being said, this movie's only about 70 minutes long, so even though it doesn't focus enough on the horror element, it moves fast enough where it doesn't get boring, and it's not like we're watching a longer cut where scenes might get slow and drawn out. When you're doing a 70-minute movie and you got enough to fill 70 minutes, it goes pretty fast. So even though it could have been more horror, it did go pretty fast through the whole thing. The plot kept going and it wasn't really boring. And hey, 70 minutes, that's hard to mess up. But overall, it's not one of Full Moon's best. I really do like the villains, especially the main one, Far Derrig. He's really, really cool. I just would have liked to see him do more crazy Full Moon, horror sequences, more crazy Full Moon, wacky death scenes. But yeah, it's just, it falls into the trap of an interesting Full Moon monster in a not as interesting world, and if they'd only shifted the scales and gave him more screen time and killed more of the people on here, that would have been much cooler. But as it stands, it's fine enough. It's not one of Full Moon's best, but it's still pretty good, and I do recommend it. Even though this creature's not in it enough, I do recommend seeing him because he's pretty cool. And if they do an Unlucky Charms 2, I'll stick around for that, hoping for more of the Red Leprechaun. Anyway, long story short, it's fine. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You're really helping the channel out. If you want to see more, I've reviewed a few Full Moon movies, and I'll put a relevant playlist on the bottom. So if you want to see more stuff, I'll have more stuff. And I do like 95% horror movies on this channel when I talk about horror movies. If that's something you're interested in, I'd recommend sticking around. Have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day.